Hi, I'm Michelle, a therapist, a mom, and a human figuring things out in real time. This is Someday is Here, a space for honest conversations about growth, relationships, and what it means to keep going even when life feels heavy. I'm really glad you're here. I had planned to record something different today, and I made the choice not to. Not because I didn't have thoughts or feelings, but because timing matters. There's a difference between having something to say and being ready to say it. I realized today that what I had planned just didn't sit right with me and it didn't feel ready. And if authenticity and being real are what my podcast is going to be all about, I can't show up and just fake it. So I'm just going to kind of switch gears for today and maybe talk about something slightly different. We live in a world that expects instant processing, instant clarity, instant insight, instant answers. Somewhere along the line, many of us learned that if we're emotionally aware or grown up enough, we should be able to talk about things right away. When I think about where I learned like that societally there's this pressure to process things immediately is probably from just being exposed to social media for so many years when it seems like a lot of people are instantly posting or writing very reactionary in the moment while they're still figuring out what's going on inside of them. And it seems like that's where a lot of like the drive and the numbers are, or when people are confrontational or very emotional. And so I think there's this idea that you have to, that everybody is entitled, if you are in social media, to all of your feelings and emotions and reactions and processing the moment that they happen. And I don't know what it is, but for me, that just doesn't settle or sit right in this season of my life. This season of my life is much calmer, more thoughtful, and less reactive. I want to make sure that when I'm speaking to something, I've had time to sit with it or I've had time to process it out so that what I'm saying isn't something that I feel like I might have to take back later, right? Or apologize for later. Because most of the time, if I'm talking about something, it's something that I feel pretty confident in or it is a part of my journey. And I've had time to sit with it myself first. When I think of young me, if I go back and look at, my Facebook posts, because, that was the thing back when I was younger. If I go back to like my Facebook posts and kind of read through what I wrote in my early 20s, it was a lot of oversharing, maybe to some degree. Um, and I laugh about it because I'm thinking like, oh, I'm so thankful social media was not around when I was like really young, like my teenage years, because at least by my mid 20s, I had somewhat of a filter, but now in my 40s, I feel like I am even more private in so many ways in my life, and that feels good for me. The things I choose to share are things that I, again, have allowed myself to have time with and to make sure that I'm comfortable with sharing whatever it is that's going on for me. And it's not like in the moment or right after something happens. Excuse me, allergies. There was a time in my life where pushing through felt like strength. getting the words out quickly felt like maturity. Silence felt like avoidance. I think there's something beautiful that happens as you continue to age. And that's that the way you view the world and the way you view yourself slowly starts to shift and alter. What we once worried about, as far as what other people thought of us or how we might be perceived, like a lot of that starts to shift. And we no longer spend as much time getting caught up in, but I have to be this way, or I have to be that way, or what if they perceive me differently because of something I'm doing? And I'm not saying that's all the time or for every situation, but I feel like we spend less time worrying about that and more time just worrying about what's going on within ourselves and how we feel about ourselves and what we are choosing to do with ourselves and our lives. Um, I think it's very performative in your early years. And I think society and kind of teaches us that we have to be. And I mean, I guess social media still in a lot of ways is telling people that if you want to be seen or you want to be big, you have to be performative. It has to be instant, it has to be fast, it has to be funny, or it has to be really controversial to be big and to see big numbers. And I think for me, having been doing this now for social media actively for about 6 months, I've had to come to realize that like my growth and my community is going to be a lot smaller and grow a lot slower because I'm choosing to not be performative and I'm choosing to not be reactionary. And I think that is okay. When I spend time sitting with something before I bring it to the podcast or to even somebody else, maybe that I'm frustrated with, or to social media, it gives me time to make sure that I'm coming from a place of values and coming from a place of healthy boundaries and coming from a place of sharing what I am comfortable to share and have out in the world for gosh only knows how long. And that is very different than when I was a teen and we didn't have social media, right? So pretty much everything we were saying was to each other. So thankfully there's not much documented proof of things like that we're seeing now, right? And so I think just being older means I'm more cautious in how I approach things. Because not everything needs to be shared while life is still unfolding. When I think about protecting like my relationships, my clarity, my sense of self, I think about what that I record, if it's going to be around in 10 or 15 years or 20 years, like what is my legacy going to be? Do I want to be talking about all of the small things that frustrate me or, that upset me or that I respond to and maybe not always the best light? Like, do I want that hanging around online for the next 15 years? The answer is no. No, I don't. Right. And so I'm making sure that like what I put out to the world is honest and real, but it just has had a lot of layers of processing before it comes to you. um, and today is Martin Luther King Day. And when I think about leadership, real leadership, I don't think about constant noise. I think about discernment, about knowing when your voice is needed and when waiting is actually the more powerful choice. When I think of leadership now versus, even 10 years ago, I think there's just something that comes with age. And that is that there's not as much urgency, but a lot more discernment in what we're choosing to share and how we're choosing to show up in the world. We're not reacting, we're choosing. Midlife for me changed the way I react or respond in so many ways. I think for a long time, living in like survival mode and like trying to get from one thing to the next thing, I lived in reactions, right? Like all of my life was very reactionary. And getting older, I have so much more time on my hands. The kids are older. I'm not spending from morning till night, like constantly caring for other humans and what they need from me. All of the needs, right? And so I do have more time to really sit with things and to reflect on things and to think about what values are important to me. And so that in turn also means how I respond to others. I'm not quick, or I try not to be. Let's be real. I try not to be quick to respond when I'm frustrated or upset. I try to take some time, even if it's just a few seconds, and center myself and really think about what's the point I'm trying to make. I don't argue anymore for the sake of arguing, right? Like I am so much more in a place of like, okay, we're just going to agree to disagree on this. Or like, hey, I hear your point, and I don't have to agree with you, right? That would have been really hard for me in my 20s for a lot of reasons. So I think there is just this idea that conversations deserve space sometimes before they deserve words. And there are many conversations right now in life that I feel like need space first. And often that is when I am in disagreement with something Sean says, or maybe one of my kids say, and that mom instinct or the fixer instinct is like, oh, jump in and say something right now. But the more collected version of me often takes a lot more time to sit with whatever that initial response is that I wanted to say or do, and to make sure that it's coming from a place that I know that it'll be received. And that took a lot of practice, and I'm still not perfect at it, but I am much better. If you're listening and you feel a lot of pressure to constantly explain yourself, to have answers, to make some sense of something before you're ready, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to wait. And this, I think, is just a perfect example of realizing that we don't always have to have all the answers, in that there has been countless times as a therapist when someone has said something to me or asked something of me that I didn't have the answer to. And instead of just trying to fill space or fill time or come up with something that sounded real or, like an answer, I have been able to become really comfortable saying, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question right now, but let me go see if I can find out. I'll bring that up, I'll bring that back to you in the next session. It's powerful being able to know that you don't have to know everything and that it's okay to be human. And it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that right now. I don't know how I want to respond to this right now. I don't know the answer to that. Let me go see. Waiting doesn't mean nothing is happening. It usually means something important is. There is a lot more clarity when we don't rush things. Clarity does not disappear when you pause. Most of the time, it deepens. I trust myself enough to know that I'm going to be okay with the outcome if I say to someone, you know what, I don't know how I want to respond to that right now. I'm going to take some time and get back to you. And they get upset. Because I know that's not about me, that's about them. It's okay for me to have that boundary. I'm giving you permission to have it too if you need it. So if today feels quiet, unfinished, or unresolved, that doesn't mean you're stuck. I just want you to remember that it's okay to take time to center yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything. And you don't owe anybody a reaction or a response right away. I will be back soon. I will see you in our next episode. Have a great day.